All right, hello, welcome. If you're actually listening,
I'm not.
uh,
You know me. I never listen.
yeah, you just yeah like there's like a humming sound in your ear, just
Right, right.
What's that? Is that from a show where somebody goes and then it just keeps on going?
That sounds like something out of Solaris, but I can't think of where it actually is from.
Yeah, I can't
That
think of
makes
it
me think of
myself.
a test broadcast or something.
Ah,
And
yeah,
they
yeah,
had those color bars and they're like, oh, yeah, this is like a
that's
screen test.
true. That's
It
true.
just makes me
I
think of
was
my
I was
ex.
thinking
Har
of Dumb
har.
and Dumber, but there's like you want to
Ah,
hear the most
I think
annoying
that
sound in the
was Dumb
world.
and Dumber. You know what? I
Yeah.
think that's where it
No.
did come from. I get, but
You mean the
anyways,
most obnoxious sound in the world, which we are not going to do right now because we appreciate you, audience.
I just
Thank
did
you, the
it,
one
so.
person listening.
it already
But
happened.
again, Carlos wasn't listening, so there you go.
Yeah, there
Uh,
you go.
God, what
Yeah.
are you, my ex?
You just said it. You made the point.
Yeah, I know. I just you guys weren't listening, so I needed to say it again.
uh,
uh,
so yeah, that's a great start to the episode. So we're you probably saw the screen, 48.
so
Yes.
yeah, so audience, thank you for
Icebreaker.
listening.
Yes, thank you for listening to our nonsense.
Your ears are probably just going like, "Ee."
Yeah, exactly. They just have us in the background, and they're like busy doing important things, and we're
If
just
you know what I
background noise. So it's fine.
mean.
It works.
Okay.
Every so often, we're just gonna explode in loud noises to scare the shit out of them.
Oh, you mean like those videos that don't regulate their volume, and then when they play clips, some parts are louder than the rest of the video?
Exactly. Like the one that we released not too long. What was it? Like 2 months ago or some shit. Remember that
What
where the
happened?
audio fucked up, and then like I had to like change the volume to match when it was either too loud or too low. It's whatever. It happened. It was pretty funny. Um, it screwed everything up. I hated that. Well, lesson learned, anyways. So our icebreaker topic is we're just gonna go over Mortar Combat because that recently happened. One, I already saw it. If you haven't seen it, too bad. I'm spoiling it.
Spoiler alert,
uh,
it's good.
yeah, it was enjoyable. It was like I was saying earlier, it's not like high art or like you're not gonna you're not going in with a 10 out of 10 movie. It's
Right.
pretty entertaining in the sense that anything with Sub Zero or Sub Zero Scorpion was entertaining in the sense the fights were great. And then surprisingly, Kano was entertaining just because he had probably the funniest comments in the
I
entire
know
film.
it's too bad that spoiler alert he died.
I don't
Uh,
I don't care about spoilers personally.
It's Mortal
I,
Yeah,
Kombat. I mean, someone bites it
Yeah,
one way or the other.
yeah.
yeah.
And on top of that, like it doesn't matter if they die anyways because there's another realm, so we're gonna see them.
that's true. That's true.
We're just
I
gonna
just
see
don't know why
revenant
people have to
versions.
die in a movie called Mortal Kombat.
It wouldn't be Mortal
Scorpion
Kombat without
died, and he turned out all right.
Good point.
It's true.
Good
It's
point.
true.
I
Uh,
I know all these deaths that are not really deaths, huh?
yeah, they're not really deaths.
Foreshadowing.
Totally. I mean, Shang
Mm,
Tsung said it himself. He's like, death is only another realm. And I'm all like,
yeah.
oh yeah, haha. He's making a reference there, haha.
Yeah.
Um,
I'd like to think that the fact that he went to hell, once he ended up over there, he was a really big fan of the Watchmen back in feudal Japan. And he looked around, he's like, "Oh, you think I'm trapped in here with you? You're trapped in here with me."
yeah, that makes sense. That fits well.
Wait a
Uh,
second. If Shang Tsung eats souls, how come people still live?
well, it depends if they died by him sucking their soul or do they die just by dying?
Oh, I
Because
suppose so.
I think he has a chamber. Back in Mortal Kombat 2, there was like a level or a background level. I don't know what you want to call it. Anyways, that was like the soul chamber, and then I think what the story said was that that's where he keeps the soul or something. Like when he
So
sucks their
what?
soul, like there's a chamber that transfers all of them to there. Something like
That
that.
makes no sense.
I don't know.
Like if you're eating somebody's soul,
Like
you
why
don't
is it
just.
inside you? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. You don't have like a separate lunchbox that you take out. It's like, oh, this is my second. This is my second stomach. I'm just gonna put it in. Whenever I get
It's like
bored.
eating
I
stuff
mean,
and stuff ends up in your fridge.
It's
yeah.
just like
I mean,
It's the leftovers.
we're arguing over the logistics of soul eating, so it's fucking Mortal Kombat. Like the logic goes out the window.
It really is.
Ah.
It
But
really
that's what we're
is,
here
man.
for, to nerd, to geek out over this kind of stupid stuff. But you're
To
right.
geek.
It is the kind of thing where like you just don't think about it too hard.
Yeah, it's definitely one of those things. I mean, already it's pretty ridiculous that Jack's inner ability is to grow mechanical arms.
That I
That's
was like, oh,
actually a thing. It actually happens. His arcana, so like if you haven't seen it, arcanas are like their descriptor to why people have powers, because it's like their inner being of some
chi.
sort. If you,
It's their chi or their
yeah,
karma or their power
yeah, some
level.
sort of spiritual mumbo jumbo. Yeah. So it's like
Their karma.
Like,
Yeah,
their
their karma.
You do enough bad, you get lasers.
Laser eyes.
Laser eyes.
Fucking
Oh.
Kano.
Yeah. But overall, like, so like the symbols that they have is basically that how they get their powers or have a chance to unlock it, and it notes that they are destined to fight in the Mortal Kombat, in their respective like side, and then like you can. It's a little bit like Highlander, where you can kill the person and end up getting the marking if you didn't have it in the first place. Yeah, one of the things is that Cole is like, a lot of people like were saying that he's just like secretly another character or something, or he's like related to Sub-Zero, it turns out, or something like that's like the people were speculating. But no, it's actually simpler than that. He's just Scorpion's great or whatever great
Grandson?
like kid, or whatever.
So
Yeah.
it's like,
Yeah.
So basically,
lame, but okay.
Yeah.
Take the remarkable scorpion descendant guy.
Exactly.
I mean, it's just kind of silly that in a series, like Mortal Kombat, where there's like a million fucking, characters to choose from, they just went out with like,
And
I made their
one,
own.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's who happens to be pretty boring.
And
Yeah.
NetherRealm's just going to bend the knee going like, woohoo, we're going to make Cole part of the Mortal Kombat
Yeah.
roster
Probably.
canon.
Oh
I
yeah.
wouldn't be surprised. I mean, their roster is already ridiculous
They
already.
got a lot of throwaway characters anyway, so I wouldn't be
Yeah.
surprised.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. There's a guy named the Raiko guy that showed up in this one. Of all people to put in there, he put in Raiko, which is like, if you look him up, he's pretty boring looking. He's when they made Mortal Kombat like Alliance or some shit. He's
yeah.
pretty boring. He's definitely.
Oh, was that the one where you had to push like 20 buttons to do the fatalities? Like there was like they had the combos on like the top of the screen, and like you had to press them like quick succession. There was
such
20
a
to 30 button. It was ridiculous. It was so stupid.
You mean the guy with the hammer, right?
Yeah, the guy with the hammer, Raiko.
Yeah, he was so, yeah, I know. I had no idea who he was. I had to look him up. By the end of by the time he had died, I was like, who was that again?
Yeah, he really was just there for the.
He's like the rope
kill
dude from Suicide Squad. Like abilities to shoot ropes. It's like,
The
who
guy who
fuck
can
is
climb
this?
anything.
And you look him up, and he's like, "Oh, he's nobody." Okay.
Yeah. It's exactly that.
He's literally there just to die. Like he's
Yeah.
there to be the cannon fodder.
To be fair, he's pretty much every guy's, one picture of in their Tinder profile. It's just
What?
climbing.
Oh.
We all like climbing.
Oh yeah, we all like.
You gotta look
traveling,
active,
climbing,
hmm
You gotta be outside, look active.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, it's like, oh yeah, I love traveling. Yeah, who
I
doesn't?
climb a mountain every day, don't you?
and I'm so quirky. I'm so quirky because I like The Office. 'Cause nobody else does.
You ever heard of this obscure show called The Office? It's crazy, but it's this gem I found on Netflix. Check it out.
Uh,
Uh,
but
but
on the
yeah,
good points, fatalities.
yeah,
Do
the
they have any
fatalities,
babalities?
They do.
Because that'd be sweet.
They have. Wait, what? Does
A
The Office have more
babality?
fatalities?
I said babalities.
Yeah, he
Did
said
Mortal
Babal-
Kombat have
Ah.
babalities?
Oh,
You'll
God.
have to watch the play now.
babality.
Or any friendships? How about that? Where you like bake a cake? Or something?
I would love that
Yeah.
that would have been great.
I hope they do that stuff in the sequels. Just some Easter egg, like little things like that. Would be hilarious.
Yeah.
Right.
Just
that would be
somebody
great.
turns like, Sonya Blade into a baby, Because why not?
That's actually that's like actually their ability. That'd be funny.
Somebody's gonna have an ability like that. You're talking about people gaining these weird abilities. Jax already
Exactly.
grows like mechanical
Mechanical
arms.
arms.
Why not?
I mean,
That'd be
that
funny.
is the funniest.
Somebody's
Oh.
got to have some lame abilities, like Doctor
Exactly.
Horrible and the dude who sweats a lot. Like somebody's gonna get that shit into the stick.
Sweats a
You know?
lot. Wait, is there really somebody who sweats a
Yeah,
lot?
that's his
power?
ability.
Dr.
Yeah.
Horrible. Have you seen that show?
Ah,
He's
yes.
Or
Yes,
whatever.
Doctor. Yeah, Doctor Horrible and the sing along. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. I always remember that. I always remember that character because it's like it's true. In a world where like people are getting all these abilities, like people would get these lame fucking abilities where it's just like, I wish I didn't have this. Like this is
Right.
worse. Like this has literally made
Isn't there-
everything worse for me.
Isn't there like some show, movie, or whatever that kind of goes on that where some people have abilities that I just want to live a normal life. My ability sucks and it doesn't actually, give me an advantage.
Yeah.
Like, it's
Yeah.
actually more of
Anything that has a
hindrance.
superpower lottery is likely going to do that. Like Epithet
Yeah.
Unleashed, there's the criminal Giovanni, and his ability is soup. Soup.
Soup? But he can just make soup?
Okay.
Yes.
Uh, what is he like? Throw up the soup so that he can.
That's
It just
funny.
comes out like, you have like sopa de res just like coming out of him.
Oh, you just make soup. It's like coming out of his body.
It comes
Ah,
out
Or
of his body.
conjured somehow.
What the
Which
fuck?
part? What part of his body does it come out of?
I don't know. I know the series in passing, and I seen like a trailer for it, going like, "Oh, okay." So
'Cause
they
I was
all
gonna
got
say,
like JoJo powers and stuff.
I mean,
It's
look,
like,
That's
look,
crazy.
he could set up a
Oh.
very specific, restaurant, as long as people don't find out what part of his body that soup comes out of.
Yeah,
that'd
but
be
you're also
weird,
assuming
right?
that
Like
you're
French
assuming the
onion
soup
coming
is
out of
good,
your
though.
armpits.
Yeah, exactly. Like
That's
who
true.
knows if it's good or not? Like
It's the body. It'll do random
Exactly.
things.
It
won't-
could just be
it won't
waste.
know.
You
Yeah.
know, like
Oh God.
that's how he shits. Like he just makes soup.
Oh God!
I mean, you technically,
It wouldn't be called soup then. It's
Hey,
just
I got a
waste.
new crab bisque here. I just had a pizza and I just made a new crab bisque for it. Like,
Look-
I don't
How
want
did
that.
you make the crap disc? I prefer not to answer that question.
look, tomorrow's Taco Tuesday. I'm pretty sure I'm gonna have soup for, by tomorrow night.
Oh, it's probably like Jesus, just like
Well,
touch water and turns to soup.
Oh, that would be
yeah,
cool.
in Mortal Kombat, in the next one, they'll have the character called Meat. Do you know about that character?
No.
There's a
No.
Is it like
character-
Super Meat Boy or something?
It kind of like that.
I know. I was gonna say.
He has no skin, and he's just a giant disembodied, not disembodied, more like entire body is meat.
Oh,
Yeah, I
so
wanna
he's
see
like
those
a
characters.
walking anatomy model, like Slim Goodbody or something?
Yeah, but it's not a muscle. It's just meat.
I see.
I mean,
Yeah,
meat-
see,
mus-
those are the
meat is
characters
muscle.
that I want to see in the sequel. I want to see that. I want to see Noob Saibot. I want to see Mocap Guy. Remember that?
I
They
think
put in
actually, here's
Mocap
the funny
Guy.
thing.
Mocap guy.
Fucking
as
ping
I'm
pong balls
joking-
all over him.
Joking aside, I really think we are gonna get Noob Saibot. Like you really are.
I
Gonna
wouldn't
see
be surprised. Yeah,
it. Yeah, because
they make him look all cool as a shadow being or whatever.
yeah. because
How
in
is
the
not-
in
They
the
probably
current,
wouldn't say his name, but fans
Right.
would know who he was.
Yeah, yeah. He's gonna
How-
in the Mortal Kombat. So what happens is Bihan dies, and then he comes back as Noob Saibot, which is just really
Tobias Boone,
yeah.
like it's
It's
Ed
the-
Boone's son backwards. It's his
Oh.
name backwards
I was just thinking of Tobias.
from
Um,
Animorphs.
no,
Arrested.
from Arrested Development. Yeah, it's like, hey, when I had
That'd be
blew
great.
myself.
Just put him in the movie. That'd be great.
Have him as have the actor.
His
as a
abilities just making people uncomfortable with his comments.
Right. He's the analropist.
But
Going to
yeah,
the Method 1 clinic.
Noob Saibot is just the programmer and the Ed Boon, which is the creator designer, and they just took their names backwards and said, "Hey, we just made this silhouette ninja, which is just a copy and paste of like one of the many ninjas they had in Mortal Kombat, I think 2 or something like that.
Yeah, the 8 million ninjas that.
Yeah. So then they put in an Easter egg character, because back in those days in the 90s, like it's all about having secret characters, right? So
Yeah.
they were they do the campy cheap way of doing it, where they don't actually make a character with a storyline, and they just like
Yeah.
threw it in there, and people of course eat it up. But everybody knows what they're seeing. They know
Oh yeah.
they know it's dumb, but they're like
Yeah.
it's entertaining. They don't take it.
They're already in at
necessary.
that point,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
it's that's what they want.
Right. Yeah.
Like we want to be able to do the moves where whatever her name is, Katana or whatever, Melina makes a fucking she makes a cake for Johnny Cage, and that's how she wins the fight. Like that's the sort of stuff that you were getting in Mortal Kombat 2 and 3. That was great.
Yep.
That was great.
It was
It's just so
entertaining.
absurd.
Yeah, it was pretty ridiculous. And then like when they became Nether Realms and they redid the canon, I guess you could say, or just like they continued it in a weird way with all the time travel and bullshit. Like then they started calling Noob Saibot by like his actual name, which is Bihan, which is Sub-Zero's real name. And he's the one that died. Like he's the Sub-Zero that died.
Yeah.
And then because he was already like, I guess you could say evil, it just like he further went in deeper, like because he was this revenant version of himself. He wanted to. He's just like his whole purpose is just to cast the world in darkness or something, or kill everybody, or blah blah blah, something like that. But yeah, I'm positive we're gonna get him back. Like, there's no way you're not gonna have like this lead villain, Sub-Zero, and not bring him back, because it was pretty entertaining. Joe Taslim does a great job as Sub-Zero, and the martial arts in there was really good, just because like they use their abilities, which I'm sorry to say, most of the good fights were already in the trailer. That's kind of sad, but at least there was the entertainment of Kano and his bizarre, like his
He's definitely a much more vulgar version of Fuse.
yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. And in this one, it's funny because he'll say things that like any normal person probably would say, in a sense of like how ridiculous that they're in, which is funny, and it's like it's good for Kano but bad for the main character, because like why have the main character? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
if you're gonna have somebody to call out the absurdity of the situation, why not be that guy? Because he's supposed to be the surrogate to the audience, and it's kind of weird to take that away from him.
You can kind of see exactly what happened there. It's that it was just a matter of the fact that the Kano actor probably just had a lot of personality to go with it, and they meant to have the main character to be our point of view, but they just couldn't take that comedic the comedic guy not
think,
say all that stuff.
You can feel the difference between the actor and the stunt person. Like the main actor that plays the main character Cole, he's like known for more action stuff. So I don't think, and then like the other actors are more leading towards acting. So I have a feeling that maybe that lent to their, they just lent to their strengths and had to shoot what they had to shoot. Because I have a feeling that like some of the lines had to been ad-libbed or added during, because the writing, of course, I'm pretty sure was just run and gun. Like they just trying to get to shooting the movie as fast as possible.
Yeah.
And like you can tell, like, oh, like the way that actor is in the first place, he's just adding in what he is interpreting of his character as is on site already, which is the same if you take that, but Joe Taslim's martial arts, but his language isn't speaking, acting, it's acting through the action. So everything he's
Right.
doing, like, you really can tell, like, they know their character enough to, like, put in stuff that makes sense to their character. So I mean, I think it's a good precedent in the sense that we should get more films that like can have stunt actors be more involved with like their character and even the powers that maybe, like the CGI stuff is, great and all, but the biggest hurdle is like how do you connect the CGI with like what you're seeing on the film or in the action. And I think this one did a pretty good job. It could go further. I feel like I'm not sure. Don't really know, but it feels like if they had more time, they probably could have had every action scene just as good, because the actors didn't look like they were completely, like they were trained enough to kind of do more to the shots that they were given or the action scenes
They
they had.
Yeah, they did pretty well enough for like you can tell that this movie, it wasn't a huge budget, the movie for the studio. Like, they, it probably had a, somewhere around less than somewhere around like, the vicinity of like, Scott Pilgrim versus the World. Like it's not huge, but also, not small. It's probably just like, up there in the like, smaller middle budget
Like
thing.
more, like they're more invested in the post production instead of like they have like a lot of areas that they go to, but like the editing is like where they had to like put a lot of their time, I would say, because it looks like they go from a lot of different environments, but most of it is digital. Like a good significant amount of the places that they go to, like you could tell that they added some special effects, and the areas that they had to put like more into the special effects, like ice, like making this one of the arenas they had was like an environment that you had previously seen, but now you're seeing is like frozen over, and that kind of stuff, like I would say, is probably the most expensive to do. You basically could see where their money investment went, and then where like, oh shit, we need to put something in here. All right, digital,
Yeah.
digital background.
Right.
This whole fucking part, green screen. Like, and then like, oh no, we need to like get from this point of the story to this point, and then we're just gonna like write and teleport everybody. All right, no problem, easy. Why don't you teleport anybody in the other situations? Whoops a doodle.
Oh, busy and stuff.
Reasons. Yeah, it showed. Liu Kang is better in this one, in my opinion, just because we're not spending more time with one character trying to hold up the rest of the entire fucking movie. And the bits that you get with him makes him more relatable. Cause in the other one, like in the '90s one, you were just like, oh, he has this destiny. You know that he's gonna defeat the guy. He has like, there is stake between him and the villain, which was made the first one good, in the sense for Liu Kang, and in this one it's like, oh, he's not sure of his place, but he knows that he's kind of a loyalist. You know what I mean? Like he's loyal to Raiden and this whole fighting Mortal Kombat and all that stuff, and he's actually more realized. Like you're coming into this with him already having like discipline and the abilities to his powers already unlocked. And I think was it? They had Kung Lao in it, and he was interesting because he was like the best of all of them, and he would like treat everybody like in the sense that like you need to figure out like what your thing is, and he would they kind of have they kind of had a pessimistic view of what was going on in the sense that like we don't have time to train you, but you have to do it anyways, and then like you have to figure it out, and then Kung Lao of all the people ends up getting killed, which sets up the bit greater pressure for the characters to kind of like get what they are supposed to, or whatever, or progress. But yeah, overall, like if you're a Mortal Kombat fan, I think you at least enjoy it. If you're not like hardcore, but you know about it, you still at the very least enjoy it. And then if you don't know anything about it and you're coming in deep, then it's gonna be a pretty like bad movie. It's gonna be
But-
like low rung.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, it's a fun fighting movie. I mean, I'd say even if you don't know much about it, like it's just you know stupid fun and and action and effects. So
Yeah,
if you like that kind of movie, just get over there and watch it.
yeah. Yeah. So the other topics that we do have for today, it's going to be deaths. So retconning deaths or recontextualizing the story because of the deaths. Um,
We're talking a lot about deaths. Are you guys okay?
yeah, I'm
Uh,
fine.
um,
Yeah.
as long
I
as you
mean,
can
it worked
resurrect.
well.
That's
Mortal
cool.
Kombat, so many characters died, and they're gonna come back anyways because they have the Nether Realm. Who gives a crap,
Oh my
right? They're
Oh
just
yeah.
come back, right? That's perfect, right? One of the main villains, Bihan, gets killed, and he's just gonna come back as some random ass silhouette dude, as per usual, because of time travel, and then because of other realms and blah blah blah. But yeah, so one of our topics is that what we think, what's like maybe the worst situation or the best situation. Uh, for me, I can only think of the worst ones of like
Yeah.
retcon the death. Um, but yeah, does anybody have anything to add to that? I could just go on mine's.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, let's do it.
Mine's was Batman. There in more recent years, Batman had got killed by Darkseid by the laser that he does. I
Yeah.
forget which canon that is. Which version of it? I think it's one of like the New 52 or something like that, or before that. It's one of the two. But basically, yeah, he gets lasered, and that's Batman's dead. But
So it was that the whole you're talking about, like the whole arc where like Batman supposedly seemingly dies, and then like that's when Dick Grayson takes over as Batman and Damian as Robin.
I think so. This is when the mantle for being Batman was
Right.
fought over.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, it's that one. Yeah.
Yeah, and then it turns out that, oh yeah, that laser actually shot me back in time.
Yeah.
What? I'm sorry. I know nothing about it. So the laser didn't,
It didn't kill him.
perforate his lungs. It just shot him back in time.
Well, the way it works, the way Darkseid's laser work is you're supposed to get evaporated. You're just
Yeah.
You're not. It's not like a laser that pierces your body and then that's it. It's more like it hits you and you're
It's
gone.
just total evisceration. Yeah.
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 So, and the assumption in this battle is, and this is like I think what if I remember correctly, this is the Batman where he never uses a gun, but this is the one time he uses a gun, and I guess
Right.
fights.
This is one of the big
Darkseid.
controversies with Batman, where A lot of people had a problem with it. You know.
Don't bring a gun to a Darkseid fight though.
Well, I think it was a gun that was specifically meant
To kill
Oh,
Darkseid.
kill
God.
him, but it's not. Yeah, but it. Yeah, it would kill him, but I think there was like another risk to it or something where
It would send you back in time next time.
I guess I don't know.
Do you know? I hate it when I
It's
shoot.
really-
When I go to the.
it's the worst.
I hate it when I go to the
so
shooting
dumb.
range and I end up, going to the past.
I know.
That's like
The
a
worst.
normal circumstance. That
It's
like, damn,
yeah, it's.
it happened again.
I know. Oh,
Why
God,
do
how
they keep
Well, I
on
mean-
giving me these bullets?
And was that the reasoning behind
So-
why he went back in time, or?
Okay, so fucking, I hate this storyline. It's the worst ever. Okay, so I'll explain. All right, so
Which is
so
why
he
it's so much fun to
goes-
talk about it.
He goes. It is fun to talk about in the sense that like
Right.
where it starts and where it ends. So the bad. Let's go with the bad. The bad is that Batman dies seemingly, and then now we get a story. Oh, he turns out he just went back in time in the caveman days. I'm all like,
Oh yeah.
fucking stupid. Okay, like that.
Wait.
Just like it wastes all the other stories that had happened between the time that he supposedly died to the one where he's like, oh no, we did it. Like that part. Like between that,
Right.
we had this whole thing with Damian Wayans and Grayson and
Yeah,
all the
see, that's
other
the
Batman
part that I know about, and that's cool. Like
yeah,
that part
was
is cool.
That was neat. But now it's all fucked because now Batman's back, right? And the
How does he
fuck-
get back?
Ugh, it's so stupid. Okay, I don't really remember how he got back, but
You meet
what
Vandal Savage or something,
okay,
like, and
okay,
he
yeah. So
uses the energy from
right.
the.
it has to do with Vandal Savage, and it has to do with also Gotham's history, and then
Of course, because
also-
Gotham is tied to everything.
Yes, of course. Yeah, I know, right? And then it ties to the Court of Owls, and it then ties
Naturally.
to and it ties to it ties to what was it called? Bat Metal. Was it Batman Metal?
Death metal.
Is it called
it-
Death Metal? No, wait, no. Bat Metal.
Uh,
Wait, Batman Metal. The whole metal
Batman.
the
Yeah,
The whole
because they had metal, and now they have death metal. I don't know, whatever the fuck it was called. The metal.
Yeah, it's the
stuff.
what? It's
Whatever's
the
going on.
Dark Knight Metal series or something like
Right.
that, where
Yeah.
it's
Full Metal
all the
Alchemist.
it's
Yes.
Full Metal
yes.
Batman.
sure, yeah, why not?
Let's go for
Metal-
that.
Batman Metal series. It has to do that one has to do with all the different alternate dimensions of
Batman's.
Dark
Yeah.
Knight's Metal. There we go. Fuck me. All right.
There you
I-
go.
I
We
did-
got
okay, the premise is
We got
all
there
this
eventually.
is shit, but there's nuggets of good things. Okay, there are.
So are you referring to like what the Batman who laughs? Is he behind it or something? Yeah.
Okay.
No. Yes. Not really.
Uh,
Yeah, exactly. The grumble is very merited here because it's stupidly it's undeservingly complicated. It doesn't deserve this complexity. So he gets so so Bruce Wayne is in the caveman days and he has to survive, and he amongst the surviving, and again, I'm not giving you details. It's really just more of a
that alone is
birds-
just stupid. That
Yeah, yeah,
alone.
the bird's
He's
eye
just
view.
surviving against
Yeah.
the caveman, and he meets his ancestor and accidentally fucks his great grandmother.
Oh no!
Uh.
It's not like that. It's not like that. It's not-
Who knows? If he fucks anybody, it could be anyone. Who
so
knows?
he's.
Now
So,
we're
yeah,
dealing
he's
with
there
Bat
and-
Neanderthal.
And he.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, was it like amongst his survival and whatever he he makes it's like a bat clan. People that's
What?
also trying to survive against another clan, which I think is the Hawk, something like that. But whatever, fuck it. Like, I don't even who cares? Okay, the whole point is that he goes back in time and he's trying to find his way back to the present time.
Okay. I'm just Ask the caveman for all that technology, you know?
It's the dumbest
It's like,
fucking
ooga booga,
retcon. I swear to God, it's
pass me the
so
fire.
dumb. And
I
then
mean, it's also the effect that he would have on time, right? It's like the whole
Yeah.
Simpsons thing where Homer goes back. He uses the toaster to go back to the dinosaurs' days, and then he sneezes on something, and everything's different. Like,
Yeah.
you imagine the effect that like Batman with his
Would
technology
probably
and
have,
shit would
yeah.
and his knowledge would have on
it
the
was
world.
actually. So here's the thing: it was mainly his knowledge. That's what happened.
Yeah.
He brought nothing that was his tech. Like
Yeah, that makes
nothing.
sense.
So he pretty
His
much
knowledge
he
is
had
more
his,
valuable.
at
Yeah.
best costume, but I don't know. He didn't have anything else, pretty much. Like let's just say, and yes, I think he does cross path with Vandal Savage at some point. And you know, like it does cause a whole bunch of like blah 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 things and happening. You know, him causing some
Ripple effects.
a lot huge effects. Yeah, that you know, like affect the current canon and blah 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 whatever. Anyway, so he just fucking goes
In
back
the
and
future-
forth. It's
in
so
the future,
stupid.
everyone's
like,
like,
even if I
Batman-
explain it, it's
Bat-
just it's so absurdly dumb. I just
Okay, Batman, why is everybody related to you all of a sudden?
yeah.
And,
Well,
like,
I
every
mean, that's
single
the
human
thing.
being.
That's the thing about
So-
Batman comics in more like maybe the last 10 or 15 years, where like
Batman has needs.
everything like has like Gotham is like the center of everything in the world and the history of like everything. Like, and that's like it's just like, oh, Gotham is this, and Court of Owls have actually been around for thousands of years, and they started the first society or all this bullshit. I'm just like, come on, like
Yeah.
it's just
They're just
like.
doing it because they know that he sells comics. That's
Yeah,
really what it
Batman's
is.
now connected to everything because he's the
Yeah.
coolest character, and he's actually at the core of like every event in history. It's just like, come on, give me a break.
Yeah, I fucking hate it. Like, and this leads me to another, like again, I love these characters, but I fucking hate these ways of like retconning the deaths, and then like you know just like it's because they want to sell more comics. That's what it is. Spider-Man. Oh my god. Okay, so
Oh, yeah.
Spider-Man frustrates me in the sense that they had like again, you know, like and I didn't even describe the good things that came from the whole Batman going into the past. Like there is good things that came from it in terms of like other stories, but not his story. You get
Well,
what I'm
that's the thing. Like,
You
that's
know?
the thing. Like, I'm describing these things, but like, there's a lot of cool stories that come about from these things, from these like stupid events.
saying? Yeah.
And that's the thing is that it's like, and that's sort of the problem is that it's just like, and why it's hard for me to even get into a lot of comics these days is because it's just like, I don't like just I understand like that retconning is like unfortunately become a part of comics, like obviously, and it becomes more and more of a part of it as time goes on. But like, I would just love to see either just, you know, standalone stories and that's all comics are,
Right.
or you just have to stick with the continuity. Like,
Right.
you just have to write yourself out of the corner, because that's always more interesting to me. And I've said this before, but like, if they ever, and they very well may, if they ever retcon anything in the MCU, I'm done. Like, I'm done with the MCU. If they ever like, oh, Captain America's, or no, like Iron Man didn't actually die, like he's back. Like, fuck that. Like, I'm not,
I heard about
like,
people pushing
Yeah,
for
there
that.
was this, like,
oh, of
rumors,
course, because he's the most popular character and everybody loves Robert Downey Jr. and all this, and it's just like, please don't, like, please. But you know, and who knows, in 5-10 years, maybe the MCU's not doing as well, and they're just like, fuck it, like, let's just bring him back, you know?
Yeah, you never know.
I mean, if
but yeah.
if Robert Downey Jr.
Charles
feels like,
Wish brought back Iron Man.
Yeah.
I mean, if Robert Downey Jr. feels like, you know, buying another island, he's feeling, you know, lazy. He could be like, yeah, sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, that guy makes a lot of money out of those movies.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And not to say too that he came from a really bad situation when he like not to go off.
Oh, I
topic,
mean,
but
he's
he
yeah,
came
he's
through a bad situation.
he's
Really
a-
bad situation.
he's
Yeah,
a
it's the
model
comeback.
success story, and
Yeah.
Hollywood of, you know, having a big, like, decades long struggle with drugs and being in and out of rehab and
Yeah.
prison and all these things, and you know, now he's one of the highest paid actors in the world, and everybody loves him. And
and then
it's
there's
pretty
the
cool.
problems with like like he had to has in his contract that he has to stay sober, and or if we catch you owe us a lot of money.
Yeah.
You fucked over the production, you son of a bitch. Anyways, yeah. So there's so Batman, yeah. That the retcon with him going back in time, and then it turns out like, oh yeah, he wasn't actually dead. Was probably like probably the worst one for me. And then the second worst is when they did. It's so dumb in the sense of Batman. No, not Batman. Spider-Man. So Spider-Man had one where it wasn't Spider-Man dying. It's the one where it's the Clone Saga, and it
Yeah.
links to
Oh, the infamous Clone Saga.
yeah, which good things did come from it. I did like Ben
Yeah.
Reilly's character and how he became about, but then the problem was is that so Clone Saga, and then then they have like fucking different Spider-Mans showing up, but Ben Reilly came from that, and then he would take the mantle as Spider-Man because Peter Parker essentially loses his abilities via I can't remember.
Yeah.
I can't remember how he loses his powers, but he does, and
Impotence.
so he gets to live his life as a normal human being. So
Except he's impotent, so he's not really living a life.
So he it links to one of the comics where he had already killed at this point Harry Osborn, not was it Norman Osborn? Yeah, he killed Green Goblin, and like this is like known, and then for a long time they just stuck with that he's dead, so he's dead, for a long time. Like this is before Ben Reilly became Spider-Man, and this is around the time, maybe a little bit after. I think it's a little bit after Clone Saga. So. But all that's connected to this one dumb thing that they did, which has to do with Green Goblin's death. So Green Goblin had already died, right? So he's dead. And this is that scene that you see, like they replicated from the movie. Well, actually, the movie replicated from the comic, where he fights Green Goblin, and this is after what's her name? Gwen Stacy dies, and the glider. Because it was chasing after Spider-Man, and Spider-Man, like
sensed it.
Sensed it, outmaneuvered it, and then it slammed and impaled Green Goblin, and so he's dead, right? Like gone. His best friend's father is dead, and now he has to kind of face the fact that, his best friend may find out that he's Spider-Man, and if he ever does, then he got a lot of explaining to do, and then that happens. Harry becomes Green Goblin. And then just all these things happen. And this is all like 90s, right? This is like then now maybe closer to 2000s when Peter Parker was losing his powers. Now Ben Reilly's becoming Spider-Man. He becomes the new Spider-Man. People fucking hate Ben Reilly as Spider-Man. People are just like, oh, I want my Peter Parker back. And, people don't like change, I guess. And so on and so
Hashtag
forth.
not my Peter Parker.
Because like the Marvel tends to try and do this thing where they try to adapt to the time and try to, like, it's a new character, but like he's the new Spider-Man and blah blah blah. Like really they try to redo the story, but it's still at least staying with its continuity. And it doesn't do a retcon, not like DC where like whenever they do it, they just like obliterate the universe.
Right.
They just go do this thing where it's like we're gonna have this apocalyptic epic fight. And everybody, all these stakes are, like the whole world's gonna get destroyed.
Yeah.
And then it happens, and then they start a fucking new series. Whereas Marvel tends to, they kind of do it, but I mean they're doing it more often these days. But
They do
whenever
it,
they
yeah.
do events, they usually still are sticking from what would happen, but they take longer for the retcon. And this is the long con. So Ben Reilly. People are hating him. Nobody likes him. Nobody likes his costume, and it's just like people are just hating on him. And eventually, how they end his series is they bring back fucking Green Goblin and Spider-Man. Peter Parker gets his
Let me
powers
guess.
back for whatever reasons, I don't even remember. And then
Clones, huh?
no. Actually, it isn't. I would have actually liked that one better. Green Goblin has a healing factor we never knew.
Okay.
So when he
course.
gets impaled, and the only reason why I brought up Clone Saga is because Ben Riley, exists, right?
The
Yeah.
And the confusion is Ben Riley
Yeah.
and Peter Parker. They don't know who's the clone.
The real one, yeah.
Yeah, for a long time until at a certain point when Peter Parker lost his powers, it was implied in a lot of the story that Ben Riley is actually the real Peter Parker,
Yeah, I remember that.
and then Peter Parker is actually the clone. But Peter Parker never knew that, and the entire time prior to a certain point, before Clone Saga even started, that he was a clone in the first place, and he was replaced. And Ben Riley has been, I guess you could say, maybe in a coma, maybe whatever, or whatever.
Yeah.
Or, like a tube or something like that. So he was, like,
Too, yeah.
sure.
Comics
right.
love them.
Yeah. like where he
Put him
is.
in a giant test tube. He's somewhere.
Yeah.
We'll get him back when
So
we need
his
him.
entire life that he thought he knew was, as Peter Parker, cut off to a certain point. And at first he thought it was a clone, but then they confirmed it that he's the real Peter Parker. But since they've lived their life so long, and Peter Parker already built a life for himself with Mary Jane and all that stuff, Ben Riley was like, look, like.
So
I can't
Peter
just-
Parker and Ben Riley.
Yeah. In the Peter Park, like the Peter Parker we supposedly know is the clone, and Ben Riley
Right.
is the real one. But
Peter
he
Parker
has
has
lived
established a
yes,
life,
as
and
established
Ben
life
Riley
as
has
Peter
not.
Parker. Exactly, which is why then when Peter Parker loses his abilities, he was like, I'm like you're the real Spider-Man, basically. So he gives him, the okay on like, hey, I'm gonna help you out, but I can't be Spider-Man anymore. I can't do it.
Right.
And I already have this life now. So it's kind of like, it's kind of nice in the sense of like, wow, Peter Parker went through all this trouble, and now he actually gets to have a life. Because that's the biggest problem, where he can't balance being Spider-Man and Peter Parker. But now that he has everything that he wants, and now he doesn't have the power or the responsibility of his power, he gets to live his life. So that's like why Ben Riley becomes Spider-Man. So the way they end it is now Green Goblin shows up, and then he knows the truth, apparently, that fucking Ben Riley is the clone and Peter Parker was the real Peter Parker in the first place because of blah, 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 blah. So,
Right.
right? Jim Mumbo Jumbo. And the reason why Green Goblin's alive is because he's been in hibernation. that the entire time of his death.
What is he, a bear? That's
Yeah.
fucking hilarious.
And then
He
the
just shoved some
regen
food up his
ability-
ass for the winter and went into a tree.
Yeah,
It's
like he's
fucking
in the
ridiculous.
coffin and his body is like regenerating slowly. So he
Yeah.
has a healing factor that activates upon death, quote unquote.
I see. So it's the Superman thing, where he's literally in a healing coma that it only activates once he dies, but he's not actually dead because
Yep.
he.
Yep.
That's
That
so
bullshit.
Doctor
So
is like,
stupid. Yeah,
I know
exactly.
I know
So
you
dumb.
just got stabbed to death, but just sleep it off.
Guess what? Guess what though? Guess what? I will give Batman changing back in time this. It doesn't fuck up other comics. You know why? Because in Spider-Man's situation with Green Goblin, this fucks it up. Seriously. Because Green Goblin claims that he's the one, when he died and went in hibernation and blah, 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 and he's like pretending to be dead, that
Right.
he is the one behind the whole Clone Saga. That he was the one that got the Jackal to do all the clones and help fund in whatever the fuck he said, how
Sure.
it was integrated. so he's the mastermind behind it all, right? But guess this, there's a problem. Between the time that Green Goblin is dead and Peter Parker is still Spider-Man, Peter Parker, at some point, actually goes to I guess, hell. And I don't remember what comic this one is, but it has to do with some ethereal aspects that he gets teleported there or travels through hell, and he meets all his villains that he had previously been involved in their deaths. And guess who he meets? Green Goblin. He's fucking there! So what does that mean? That doesn't make sense! How can you be there with the Clone Saga and be behind it, but still be dead? What are you telling me here? It doesn't make sense.
The clone
Unless
is
Green
in hell.
Goblin takes
Look,
off
the
the
clone is
mask
in
and he's
hell.
actually Peter Parker. Oh, shit.
Yeah, right? The worst. It was the worst. It was the worst. I
The
remember
devil
it
shows up.
specifically.
The devil shows up and he's
reading
like, "Guess what? Shh!" Takes off a mask. I've been Peter all along.
And it's so stupid because like, ah man, it's so bad to have a character die in such a way. So in this version, Ben Reilly dies, and it confirms that he was the clone because the clones are the only ones that like basically turn to dust, like they evaporate essentially. Lovely, right? Gotta love comics. Gotta love comics. And
Man.
their ridiculous retconning. It's just like, why? And
They
they
just
don't.
take.
Yeah, I like how the story was like good, and then they just went too many steps. It was like, oh yeah, like it's basically the replicant situation, where it's like, who's the clone? But then again, does it matter because you have the life and I don't, so I'll be Spider-Man. And it's like, cool, let's leave it at that. It's like, no, let's keep going. It's like, no, please, like it's enough.
It's so stupid, man.
Right, they're like, doesn't matter who's the real one. Yes.
and it's the problem that they're just they just pander to the fans. Like people hated
Oh yeah,
Ben Reilly,
of course.
and then everybody's like, "Oh, I miss Green Goblin." It was like, oh, I don't like Harry Osborn as Goblin. Well, I mean, he's dead now, so that's another fucking thing too. It's just like
Anybody can be Green Goblin. Like this,
Yeah,
like you just
exactly.
put on a mask.
Yeah,
and like get some abilities. Like it's the Marvel universe.
And that's another fucked up thing is
pretty
that,
easily achievable.
Is that Harry? No wait. At this point, when you find out was it
Norman
is alive, Harry's dead. So you mean to tell me that you reveal yourself now? after you long after your fucking son.
Well, he'll just clone his son. It's no big deal.
And this is and this is why I hate it even worse is because now because he's back, he decides to be like, oh yeah, I'm gonna be Grandpa Goblin now.
With the little goblins running around, huh?
Because Harry Osborn has a kid.
Yeah.
He's dead, but he has a kid. So now what? Now
clones?
No. Well, no.
Harry Osborn had a kid before he died. And,
okay. I was gonna say, like, did he just have like Harry's, semen just laying around? It's like, this is what my kid what I always wanted.
It's so ridiculous, is because like, why you show yourself now when you could have fucking
prevented
helped
all.
your son? Yeah, exactly. Like, what were you doing this entire time?
He was still in the middle of hibernating. He wasn't done.
He was busy going to hell to find
He has to
soul.
complete the cycle.
That's
you don't get
damning. That's super damning, though. Like the fact that he was there in hell, like doesn't it just
right?
Like, what?
That's the thing about retconning, man. You keep building and deconstructing all these stories again and again. Eventually, and it always happens, you hit a wall where shit doesn't make sense, and it just conflicts on the page, and people are like, "What the fuck? Like this doesn't make sense."
Exactly. It takes a fan to.
And then they got to make it make sense, and it gets even more convoluted and absurd, and it's just
Yep.
Terrible rabbit hole.
Yeah, and it's so stupid too because we already had the whole like dynamic between Osborn and his son, and then like the kind of issues that came with him being Green Goblin, but also trying to be his son, the father to his son, and how he was affecting his son's life so much.
Yeah.
And then they just try to fucking repeat that same thing, that same formula, but this time with Norman and his grandson, and it
Of
is
course,
like
yeah.
so stupid.
You're Harry now. What?
Yeah, it's like, oh, I
I'm
wasn't
just
there
gonna
for
call you Harry.
for my son. I might as well be there for my grandson. Like, come on, dude. Like, where were you the whole time then? Even as a villain, like, you wouldn't show up or anything like that. Like, why now?
I mean, I'm surprised Harry didn't just go into like hibernation when he died too. You know, like why not? Like it
Exactly.
runs in the family. He has my blood. Don't you understand?
Yeah, that's what makes the regeneration happen. Like, I'm not surprised that it didn't happen. Maybe it did. I don't know.
Who cares?
Yeah, I know. It's so freaking ridiculous. Anyways, yeah. So anybody else has like any retcon deaths like similar to that?
I mean, mine is Superman, and compared to all the things that you were saying, like it's pretty tame, honestly. But you know, I guess the biggest thing about the death of Superman, that whole saga, like '93 or whatever, whenever it was, like, and you know, the first arc is Superman fighting Doomsday, and then he dies, and then the second one is like, you know, all those classic covers of all the superheroes being around, like Superman's coffin and his funeral and stuff. And like the third arc is like, you know, the four Supermen like show up. There's like Steel, who's, you know, exactly what he sounds like. He's like John Henry, and like he puts on like a metal suit. It's that terrible Shaquille O'Neal movie. Remember that?
Yeah.
That's where
Yeah.
that came from. So
Right.
yeah. It's that, except not as lame as that movie, not quite. And then you have like the Eradicator, who I can't remember. He's like some alien, like some ancient alien from like Kryptonian history or something. I don't remember exactly, but like he's basically like he's putting on the mantle of Superman, but he's like killing people, and he doesn't care about like having a life on the side. Like he's just Superman. And then like, well, I mean, a killer Superman. And then you have the cyborg Superman, who is like the main villain of this, I guess, after Doomsday. And then, and he's like the main evildoer. And then you have, of course, because clones again, you have Superboy, the '90s incarnation of Superboy, who is a clone of Superman. And so you have these four Supermen showing up, vying for the power vacuum that Superman's death has you know created. And I think that's the most interesting part of this whole arc. And again, the way events shake out is fucking stupid, and the whole thing is dumb. But like a lot of these stories are cool. The stories within those are cool. Like the four Superman stories are very cool. The problem is that, as I mentioned, the Eradicator, he is the one who, when Doomsday kills Superman, and then Lois Lane after the funeral, somebody's trying to, like Cadmus or something, somebody's trying to clone Superman by like taking his blood from his body, but Lois Lane opens up the coffin and Superman's body's gone, and they're like, where is he? And it turns out the Eradicator took his body and put it into a matrix, like a healing matrix or something, and like he's in a healing coma, like they literally call it that. Like it's, so he died, but he's now healing. But when he wakes up, he doesn't have his abilities, and he's like using this like Gundam thing to like get around or whatever. And like
What?
like he's using like this robot thing, like it's like a Titan almost from like Titanfall to like get around, because he's got to get back and help. You know, he's got to, I think, like Green Lantern, like, because they like destroy what is the city that Green Lantern is from? Like Hal Jordan, it's like Coast City or something. But like they destroy, because like Superboy and like I think Supergirl's in at that point. They're fighting Cyborg Superman, and Mongol's in there too. Like he's working with Cyborg Superman, and they're like, you know, we're gonna destroy some cities and create a new one, and they got like kryptonite gas and stuff so that the Superman can't come close. So you know they're fighting him, and Superman's trying to make his way back to the battle, even though he doesn't have any abilities. And then he makes it there, and all this time again, other stories are happening, like Pa Kent knowing that his son has been killed. He like has a massive heart attack, and he's like, he dies too, but then like he meets Superman in the afterlife, and they have like a heart to heart, and he like sends him back to his body, so Pa Kent is alive again. And then
Hope that was before the funeral too.
no, it's not. I believe it's after.
God.
Oh God! It's like, oh God! Let me out of here.
Yeah, he's all like, oh no, all the embalming fluid, it hurts.
Oh yeah.
No, not Superman. It's like Superman in the afterlife sends Pa Kent back to his body so that he can like live again. So he doesn't die because
death, like post the funeral.
I think it's post Superman's funeral. Yes.
Okay.
I think I don't remember, but like yeah. So yeah, this is the climactic battle. The Eradicator comes there. He's fighting with Superboy and Supergirl. I think they kill Mongol, or I think Green Lantern comes back. He's like pissed that his city has been leveled, and he kills Mongol in a rage. And but there's still the kryptonite gas, so I think they can't get close to him or whatever. And then Superman comes back, but he doesn't have his abilities. And then I think like the Eradicator, he like goes in to the kryptonite gas to like kill Cyborg Superman, but then like he dies from the gas. But because the Eradicator put Superman into the healing matrix, because he was like using the healing matrix in the Fortress of Solitude, so it was like, I guess, storing the power, Superman's power, which Eradicator was using. So when Eradicator goes into the kryptonite gas and dies, somehow his abilities are transferred back to Superman, and Superman gets his abilities back, and he kills Cyborg Superman, and that's how it ends. It's kind of tame compared to all the ridiculous shit you were talking about with Batman, especially, but even Spider-Man as well. But the reason why this is a huge problem is because it totally fucked up death in comics. Like, that's why we got those Spider-Man things and those Batman things and a million other things where, like, nobody even takes death in comics seriously anymore, right? Like, it's just like, they're going to come back because they always do. Like, the death of Wolverine, like, that whole saga is, like, pretty good, but then, he came back and, like, he broke out of the adamantium shell he was in. It was like, I was alive this whole time. And it's just like, okay, like, that death of Superman. I think Max Landis.
People going up to his statue, going all like, "Oh man, I miss you, man," and he's going, like he's stuck in there trying to like scream at them.
I mean, yeah, I think Max Landis made like he's like a screenwriter, and he made like a video years ago about the death of Superman and how it like fucked up death in comics, and it was pretty good. I don't remember most of it, but he's basically saying a lot of what I'm saying, and it set a bad precedent. It set a horrible precedent for comics because that's why we have all the stuff we have today, and it can't be taken back. Like it's one of those things that where it's like we get all these universe shifting events like you were talking about in DC and Marvel, and they retcon it again and again. But this is one of these things where it was like, the writers created this. They created this universe shifting event that went beyond the comics and affected how other writers saw death in comics. And so it just wasn't taken seriously. And so you have these really meaningful, impactful arcs that are immediately devalued because you already know that the character is going to come back eventually. Because that wasn't a thing. It wasn't a thing like before. And it was like, either characters didn't die or they died. And that was kind of it. I'm sure there was some instance here or there where there was some Deus Ex Machina that saved them or something. But for the most part, that wasn't a thing before the death of Superman. So that's why, despite it not being a bad arc, it's just like it just left a permanent stain on comics. So yeah. there you have it.
All
So
right.
one interesting ones in that that a lot of people don't know is that apparently the same thing, death and eventual resurrection that came back. That's actually happened to Sherlock Holmes.
Mm.
Um,
Yeah, when
yeah,
he's
the
taken
yeah,
off a Reichenbach Falls or whatever by Moriarty.
yeah,
I
yeah,
mean,
yeah.
yeah, I mean it's not quite the same. Like it's not quite the same. Like he was. It's true that like Sir Conan Doyle, like he brought him back because like fans wanted Sherlock Holmes back. And the reasoning for him being back wasn't great, but it wasn't quite like that, and it definitely didn't have the impact on like literature that Superman's death had on comics.
True.
But,
By the
But
way,
yeah,
how
it
about
is
him
it is
back?
sim it is something similar that happened like literally,
Oh, okay.
centuries before, sure,
like what
or a
what
century.
was the way that they brought him back, or how did he die in the first place?
Clones.
Uh,
No, I'm just kidding.
no,
Can you
no,
imagine though? In the early 1900s?
it was kind of similar. Like if you've seen the second Sherlock Holmes movie with Robert Downey Jr., it was kind of similar to that, where like they fight, and then both Sherlock Holmes and Moriarty fall off the waterfall. I believe Moriarty dies, and then Sherlock Holmes, like he survives, but he's using some sort of breathing apparatus or something. But then like he stays. It's kind of like he stays in the background for a while, not letting anybody know that he's alive, to like take down the rest of Moriarty's network of criminals
Oh,
that
is
he
he in a
has.
healing coma too?
No, he just didn't die, and
Yeah.
he just faked his own death. Yeah, he faked his own death so that the criminals that Moriarty was working with would come out of hiding, knowing that Sherlock Holmes wasn't there to stop him, and that allowed him to like stop them from behind the scenes.
Okay.
Yeah, that's pretty good reasoning after the fact. I can see
Yeah,
that.
it's decent. Yeah,
Yeah,
That
it's decent.
that
Yeah,
one's
exactly.
fair.
Yeah.
Like that
Yeah,
makes
Yeah.
sense that they would, like, there's a reason for all that shit for that.
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean,
There's a
it sounds
purpose.
like, yeah, Sir, what's his name? Arthur Conan Doyle.
hmm
Yeah, he definitely didn't want to bring him back, but
He didn't.
with so
No,
much.
he didn't. But he did. Yeah, he made the best of it. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Oh,
Yeah,
that's pretty interesting.
That's pretty interesting. Pretty interesting. Any more deaths that anyone wants to bring up?
So
The-
when I bring up Capcom, what are some deaths that come to mind that seem to be disappointing? Little fake out deaths.
Wesker? What? Are you
I was
talking
gonna
about Capcom?
say, yeah.
You said
I
Capcom,
mean,
right?
yeah, that's an example. But I guess one in particular that stands out to me is from one of their iconic series, Street Fighter, and that is Charlie. Because Charlie has so
Oh, yeah,
many ways that
right.
he gets killed off. And,
Yeah.
I was one of those kids who read the manuals of his Super Nintendo games.
Oh,
So
yeah.
when I was reading about Guile's profile and hearing about how his friend Charlie died, and even seeing I had this whole visual of what it was like they were in a prison camp and everything, and then Charlie just gets killed by Bison's troops. It wasn't clear what it said. All I knew was Guile was shouldering drama about his best friend getting killed, so he was after Bison for revenge. Now, there are so many ways that they went about this. One was the Street Fighter movie where Charlie and Blanca were one and the same, which
Yeah.
was stupid, but I get it. I mean, I respect the dramatic license there. And there's Street Fighter Alpha, which introduced Charlie as a character in the roster. So you got to see, oh, he was the one who inspired the Sonic Boom and the Flash Kick. So, okay, so it's kind of like he taught him what he knows and everything. And Capcom just can't make up their mind of when or how Charlie dies. Going no, he dies this way. Just kidding. He dies this way. Just kidding. And then they brought him back in Street Fighter V, where he kind of looks like a Frankenstein's monster. And, I guess the general consensus is it's we like having Charlie around because players like using him. He works kind of mechanically different from Guile. It's yeah, I mean, you guys kind of see that there's yeah, it's a fan thing, but it might be like I guess they can't really decide between narrative and gameplay reasons because that's the thing about
Right.
when you make a fighting game, people will grow attached to the characters.
Right.
So
Right.
even if it's for something like because I like for Guilty Gear, if the character Zato is pulled from the roster just because his voice actor died, and then they're like, "Oh, we got to bring him back," and then they bring him back in the later games. Like, yeah, I mean, you can't. I understand you have to try to respect the voice actor's wishes and everything, but fans will like playing a character. You can't just deprive them of the privilege of being able to play a character just because of some personal, just because of some arbitrary thing such as respecting the voice actor's wishes, or even just saying like, "Oh, the story doesn't allow." It's like, well, then that's the story. Why not just rewrite the story then? It's like, yeah, it kind of makes sense. It's like, so you
Yeah.
just set up this whole character who was supposed to be part of someone's tragic backstory, and then you ended up changing your mind because it's like, oh no, we made a version of the character now, and people like playing as him. It's like, look, that's the thing. Like, it cheapens the death, but it's kind of a midway thing where it's like it doesn't really serve as much harm. It's just like now you kind of realize that having a friend death as a backstory to define the character might not be the best way to have the character, and you just kind of define that character in different ways now.
Hmm. Yeah.
Just
Yeah, that's a lot harder on a game that has really about like what you can play.
Yeah.
It's a
and
bit
I
different than
I guess
like,
to
comic
add
and stuff.
something to that, it's like another thing, I haven't played Age of Calamity, but I heard that it retcons a lot of the deaths of major characters from Breath of the Wild. Um,
Oh,
so
what?
the champions who
What?
pilot the mechs, they like apparently the game is done in a way where they don't have to die and they team up with their descendants to like win. So it's
Oh,
kind of a
I
branch
see.
story path.
Because
So
time
it's
travel.
like both a prequel and an alternate timeline at the same time. So
Right.
it makes me think, are they just pulling their punches back on like, oh, look, what if they didn't die? Yay, look,
Yeah.
Cavalli is alive, but his descendant thinks he's a dick now, but at least he's alive. Yay. It's like, okay. I mean, you know,
Yeah,
I
it
I
just
get
takes.
it, but it's like think about what that trauma like not that trauma, but think about what that it kind of changed the story and you made it so that like you want to have your cake and eat it too with the your own narrative you set up that people liked, and now you just made it so like, oh well, the death is an option now, so this is you probably just played the bad future, there's a good future now. It's like
Right.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, it sucks for that
Huh.
specific game because so much of the, Breath of the Wild was, coming back after, after the fact and realizing that just so much, well, calamity, so much tragedy had happened, like, after the fall, after, Ganon had
Right. It's
completely,
basically thinking like, oh, you got into a coma, you came back, and now everybody you knew and loved is dead now. But then when you get to the end of this, it turns out you're just in the bad timeline.
yeah, yeah.
That's a slap to your face, man. That's like
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
like God. Why did you do this to me?
Yeah, yeah. Oh,
Damn. And that actually makes me think about like mechanics in death. Have you ever had a game character where the mechanic in there is like, well, we die all the time. Why you die in the story and now it's permanent? I.e., Eris, Final Fantasy. I mean, everybody
Sure.
dies, right? But then like, she gets stabbed once and then like that's it.
Right.
I mean, Borderlands. Like we have the classic example of Borderlands where Roland dies. I mean, we've been dying lots of times. We just lose money. Well, you couldn't like lend a couple of bucks to revive him.
Yeah.
That's true. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I
It's
could put some
it's one
money
of
in your
those
bank
things
account.
where the mechanic didn't serve like the game mechanic doesn't gel with like the story, I guess.
Yeah. Like
This
there's
is
no
sort
way
of
you can reconcile the
Yeah,
two. Like
yeah, you can't. Yeah, and I'm not saying there's a better answer, and I'm not saying
Yeah.
it's their fault.
Yeah, yeah.
It's just pointing out
I
the
mean,
funny thing.
But it yeah.
Like, I don't
you
think
could
there's no
have a.
way they can really go around it.
I mean, you could throw. I mean, you could put around a throwaway line where, like, because in the Borderlands universe, you're simply reconstructed, um, through the teleporting, devices that they have,
Yeah, you have a
and
good
they
point
have your
actually.
information. Yeah, you could just put a throwaway
They
line.
could have made
We
it
write
so
this
that the
information, and they
twins.
cannot.
Right, so you can't replicate them. Yeah,
Right.
Yeah,
Like
exactly.
they should.
yeah, they
If
could have
I,
done that.
they could have just they could have done it where like they said that the twins own the like was able to hack into the current replicator or whatever that's nearby.
Yeah,
And it
yeah,
actually
exactly.
and we I mean I guess then we could find out there's a range issue. Like you can't. That means like maybe that you could have added to the story in terms of or like the lore, I guess you could say. That you if you're too far away from it that you would you can't get replicated. It's like you're gone.
Also,
gone.
yes, well, it could be like, you guys have seen that show, Altered Carbon, right?
Yeah.
The show, yeah, and for those who don't know, in the show, people um have this things outfitted into their necks that where they can store all of their personalities and pretty much their life. And if so if they die, they can just put that in another body. Like they even if you're really really
It's like a
rich,
memory
you can
card,
just back.
basically.
Yeah, it's basically this is a baby Mary card
Yeah.
for your soul. And
Yeah,
if
and
you're
if the
really
memory
rich,
card is as long as it's intact, you survive. Like
yeah,
you can survive. Yeah.
yeah. And if you're really rich, you can just upload it yourself to the iCloud.
Right, and then have a bunch of clones just like waiting for you.
Yeah, you can have the worst or best orgy ever. But I think it's in the but in the it's in the
Wouldn't that be called
second
masturbating
season.
then?
That's a whole different podcast. That might be the topic for for later sessions. But in the second season, which is kind of boring, and kind of forgettable,
I
somebody
liked the
gains the
second
ability
season
to.
more than the first.
Oh yeah, interesting. I kind of just keep forgetting it, but I had fun watching it.
I kind of forget the whole show, honestly. But
Yeah, it is kind of forgettable. It has some great visuals. Like it had some
yeah,
really,
aesthetically, it's great. Yeah,
yeah.
and I do like the technology and stuff that they talk about. It's just there's so much like jargon to get through, like where like they're talking about like
the Dune problem.
slides and slips and discs, and I'm like,
Yeah.
what?
Yeah.
What? Like,
Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah,
What
who are
is
the
it?
maths?
We have to
The
catch
maths?
up to reality, basically, because there's so much.
Yeah.
jargon.
yeah, I just remember the gap between season 1 and 2 is like 2 years or something, and they're doing the recap like Netflix does, like, and I'm just like, I don't remember. Are the people the slips and the discs, or the things in the neck,
Right.
or the floppies, or what? What are
The
those?
floppies?
Like, I don't know what the fuck.
Well, we're never gonna get another one, I think, right?
Nope,
But
it
yeah,
just canceled. Yeah,
yeah. Oh,
but yeah, continue.
I would have seen another one. Well, yeah,
Yeah,
in
me
the
too.
second season, like that girl, gains the ability to infect the cloud, so he
Oh,
can just
yeah.
literally, completely kill even the rich people.
Right.
Right.
No
so,
backups.
So that would have been like the right thing to do, right play to do on the mechanic wise in Borderlands. But
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you could have done something like that for sure.
That's pretty cool though. Like I think the Charlie reference is really like that merits a lot of points there because that's a hard call. I don't think that you could ever really say that like you can't like make a good story, like really justify bringing him back in a way where it's not hokey or something or cheap or not cheap. Yeah. Because it does cheapen, I guess, the character background story. But then again, it is.
I mean, that's the thing with fighting games, though, is like the narrative takes a back seat to move sets and having balanced fighters that people like. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I definitely understand why people wanted to have Charlie in because people had the chance to play as him, and then they're like, you know what, I like this guy. I want to have a chance to play as him, so I guess that makes sense.
The
I
thing is
mean,
that
he doesn't play exactly like Guile, so
Right.
yeah. I mean, when you have a roster, some people are used to playing a character in a different style. It's also like how Smash Brothers once had either Ness or Lucas, but not both in Ultimate, and then
Right.
eventually they brought back, I think it was Lucas, because it's like people actually did develop their play styles around how he plays instead of just being like, oh, just take Ness. It's like having both of them. I mean, it's not. They don't play the same. They don't have the
Yeah.
same A moves, but
Yeah.
it just goes
They
to
have
show that
similar.
you never know who's going to be valuable to somebody.
Right.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
What?
similarities doesn't necessarily mean that they're completely carbon copies.
What do they call them in Smash Brothers? In Ultimate,
Echo Fighters.
Echo Fighters. That's what they're called. Yeah.
Right, where they have similarities to the other character, but have like a very small, like.
I mean, that's the thing. The
Yes,
nuances of different characters
Right.
that's what makes fighting games, right? Like, it's
Yeah.
small differences can make a big difference just based on your play style. And it's pretty important to have that whole roster there, because people will pick up on the nuance. And it's, one small thing, it might not make a difference to someone else, but for someone who plays in a different way or wants something different, then it can be like, oh man, like I kind of like this other character, but this small difference makes it so that this other character is like perfect for me. Like it's just very, it's circumstantial and just depends on the individual. So you always want as many choices as possible.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, yeah. The fighting games have it, the toughest because
Yeah.
there's always that game narrative dissonance that has to happen, or else nobody would be alive in Mortal Kombat.
Right.
Yeah.
That's
I
true.
mean,
Yeah,
especially the
that's
newest
that's
ones.
pretty fair. Like we've been talking about comics, and then we did talk about Mortal Kombat earlier, and now we're coming back to games, which is nice because it does. It's basically the retconning works for games because like you're that character, like that's really speaking to you, whereas in a comic or any other more story driven narrative, it doesn't work because you
Oh.
don't have to necessarily like you're not like you're not invested in the same way with a character that you're reading about or experiencing through one story, whereas you're playing a character in a game, which is now like even more like invested, I guess.
Well, I mean, you're playing like one character, or you're playing some characters, but then there's
True.
other characters that you're seeing. Like you brought up like Wesker or something. I mean, there's a lot of like kind of bullshit deaths in Resident Evil, right? Where you have Wesker the first time where he dies, or
In
he's
the first
about to
game.
die in the mansion because
Yeah.
the tyrant like slashes him. But then like what we don't see is right before he dies, he injects the serum and gets away without anyone seeing. And you see him; he doesn't show up
Total
until Code
bullshit.
Veronica, and he has the abilities and shit. And it's like, oh, I guess you survived. And then you have also like Ada Wong who died. She like literally falls, like
Right.
hundreds of feet in Resident
Oh,
Evil
yeah.
2, and then she's somehow in Resident Evil 4, and they don't even talk about it. Like you literally just kind of have to, I guess, read between the lines, where it's just like, oh, I guess because she's working with Wesker, he injected her with a serum, but not the same serum because she doesn't have abilities. Like, I don't know. Like, who fucking knows? She's just back, and it's just
Yeah.
like, and then you have like, I think probably the worst offender for me anyway is like probably the Jill death in Resident Evil 5, where like, they show the flashback of like Kristen and her like before the game, and like they fight Wesker and she gets like kicked out of a window or something, and like like it turns out Wesker like she fell a long way, but it turns out Wesker like I guess got her body and put it into a test tube and made her blonde and super with a fucking jewel in her chest. And
Yeah,
I don't know.
That one for sure is the worst because that one actually is a playable character, whereas like Ada and Wesker
that's
at
true.
the time,
Yeah,
they're just they're in the periphery. But
yeah, I mean, you could play Ada in like the separate ways, like DLC, but like
Right.
Jill was the main character of the franchise.
Yeah.
And it sucks too, because like chronologically, we haven't even seen Jill again after that since Resident Evil 5. So it's just like, well, what happened to her? Because she's not with Chris in Resident Evil 6, or I guess 7 when he shows up in the last cutscene, and then I doubt she'll be an 8. So it's just like, okay, well, what happened to this character? But yeah, there's definitely some bullshit deaths, but in Resident Evil, and there's some deaths where you expect characters to come back, but then they don't.
Hey, wait, Apollo. Turns out that watch it. Turns out Lady Dimitrescu is gonna end up being in jail.
Oh God, why not?
I mean, she looks a lot older now. That she would look a lot older,
And
just
a
like
lot taller. Yeah, she's like
taller too.
a vampire and a witch or whatever the fuck she is now with Wolverine claws and yeah.
I still really want to play that game.
Yeah, I'm mildly intrigued to play it. I think the setting like probably intrigues me the most. It's like kind of Castlevania-ish, like the snowy, isolated like castle surrounded by a village, and you're like fighting vampires and witches, but they're really, I assume, like bioweapons.
Right.
And Chris might be a werewolf. Who knows? Like it's
yeah. They do a Zelda where he can. Yeah, it's a mechanic. He can transform now.
Yeah, exactly.
Now he can push rocks, and you can be push rocks.
He bites the rocks.
It makes more sense that he can push the rock.
Don't you just punch boulders on a daily? Come on, man. Do you even punch?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I think that's it for our thoughts on death retconning and whatnot, and the bullshit of it. Some stuff does come good out of it, but more or less it's pretty much a really bad idea. Usually comes from a bad idea. But
it comes from a good place of trying to keep as much money in the franchise as possible.
Yeah, so it is appeasing the fandom, maybe sometimes a little too much. But yeah, definitely there to try and sell the IP more, I guess.
Okay, there is perhaps one, kind of a retcon, sort of, that might work, but we still don't know. When it comes to a death, and that would be of Lady Stoneheart in Game of Thrones.
Yeah,
she is Lady Stoneheart. If you don't know, it's what happens after the the Red Wedding. Lady, wow,
Catelyn Stark.
Yeah, Catelyn Stark. She gets brought back to life by that guy who who can't die. Yeah, he gives up his immortality in order to bring her back.
Thundarin, yeah.
Thank you. I'm terrible with names.
Yeah. And that's like, and that in the book, like instead of the show where like in the 8th season where he like guards a doorway and like gets stabbed, and that's his purpose.
The frame of the door.
Yeah, like his purpose in the comics is better realized, I guess, because it's like
in the book
his purpose is, in the book is that like his purpose is to allow Catelyn Stark to get her vengeance for the Red Wedding. But again, like you said, Carlos, we don't know because she hasn't really done anything. She hasn't done very much, and we've seen very little of her. So we'll see. Yeah.
In 20 years, when Game of Thrones is finally, the books are finally done.
Yeah. I don't know. Like, I think he'll finish Winds of Winter, but I don't know if he's going to finish the one after that. Like,
oh, God.
The guy's in his late 70s. He's hardly in great shape. Like, I would like to think that he's going to finish the books. I really want him to, but it's been 10 years since the last one. The entire television series has come and gone in the time that since the last book has come out.
Entire empires have risen and fallen.
So, yeah. I think what unfortunately is going to happen is he's going to finish Winds of Winter, unfortunately probably die, and then someone else is going to finish the books.
Jeez.
Because he either finishes it or assuming the books are on the same time, continue with the increasing timeline that he's writing them. Like it's gonna be he's gonna be well into his 90s or over a century old when the last one is written.
would just take his head, stick it into one of
Why?
those jars and
And
stuff,
even
and
he-
keep him
even
alive.
he- Well, it's because I think it's because he's spreading himself so thin over projects. Like he's involved in like every like in Game of Thrones when it was on. Like he was involved as an executive producer and also writing some of the episodes. And he also is writing another series of books. But he has a bunch of series of books. But he's coming out with those books, but not Game of Thrones. And now he's like involved in all these other television projects, and it's just like.
He's even
I
involved.
get it. Like I get that you're like an attractive commodity to people because you're George R. R. Martin, but for the love of God, like just focus. Like,
Dude,
like
he's even involved in Dark Souls, the new.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Elden Ring, yeah,
The Elden Ring is
Oh.
actually written by him,
Oh.
yeah. It's
What?
his story, so yeah.
Oh Jesus.
right?
God damn.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's no wonder. Yeah, that explains a lot.
Yeah.
Damn.
Okay.
Nobody dies in that. No, nobody gets a. Oh, okay. So you did. Wait, you're right. Somebody did get a retcon. I guess you could say. Retcon.
Doesn't really. I mean, yeah.
Not really a
kinda,
retcon, but
I
it's
mean,
definitely in
it's
the
working
same.
within the rules of Game of Thrones, but it is similar to that where a death is
Yeah, he did admit in a
Semi-reverse?
interview.
What if they ended up reversing Ned Stark's death though? That'd probably be pretty stupid.
Oh yeah,
that would be very
well.
dumb. Especially because he's already been boiled down to bones. Like he's like his
Yeah,
bones.
yeah.
Like that's the thing in the books. Like he was boiled down to bones, and then like his bones were being transported back to Winterfell, but then they got lost, so nobody knows where his bones are. So yeah, I mean
Wait,
that would be
they did
really
have-
dumb. I know
So-
fans wanted that so bad in the show, and I'm like,
Right. Okay.
they did a lot of wrong things with that 8th season, but thank Christ they didn't bring him back.
He
Right,
just
right.
comes back as one of the skeletons from like Jason and the Argonauts. He's even like he's even he's even animated the same way with like claymation.
Yeah, it's claymation, stop motion animation style.
Yeah,
Oh
yeah.
my god. That would be ridiculous.
What's I gonna say? Okay, two points about that. George R. R. Martin actually did say that he did kind of bring her back because he honestly went in a really bad depression after writing
The Red
out the Red
Wedding.
Wedding. Yeah, so he did admit that was the one thing he wished
That's
he hadn't
interesting.
written, but
Mm.
yeah, but he's going with it now.
Oh, so he admitted to like regretting bringing her back.
Yeah.
Oh, well, that kind of explains why we've seen so little of her. Then I don't
Yeah,
know
right.
if he knows where he's going with that character. Then
I see.
Yeah.
I see.
But-
Then,
because she
yeah,
really she showed up very little in the book so far, and she's done very little aside from like hang Brienne and like make her like basically go and make her agree to go kill Jaime Lannister. That's what's basically happening in the books. So, but
she
again,
hates,
she's
no,
done
Brienne.
very little.
wonder he's
I totally
regretting it.
forgot about that.
Yeah,
Interesting.
I don't know.
Well,
Yeah,
that's-
that's not great. I didn't know
Yeah,
that.
okay,
yeah,
That's
yeah,
not-
exactly. Not the best playable character,
Yeah.
But we
Okay.
did have somebody resurrect in the actual show, who was, of course, Jon Snow.
Right.
Yeah.
Which I assume will happen in the books as well. Like I would assume, just because like the books, the way the books have left off, it ends exactly where season 5 ends, with him being like stabbed to death by his Night Watch brethren. Although it's in different circumstances, like there's a bunch of people around, and like there's a giant attack happening. Like a little giant attacking
Interesting. Okay.
Night's Watch.
It's amongst the chaos, right? Okay.
Yeah, but he was like clearly stabbed to death, and Melisandre she's at Castle Black as well already. So yeah, I don't know. Like I assume he's gonna come back, but that would be kind of interesting if he didn't. Like if like it was totally different from the show, and he just that's how he dies.
Interesting.
Although,
I
like
really-
the show, I don't. He is like. There's so many characters, but he is like that hero character that you feel like you need, to keep it cohesive. Like I don't know who would fight Ramsay Bolton or like rally the Night Watch together if he wasn't around. But it would be kind of interesting to see if, like, see that play out.
Right.
It would be interesting if his death actually brought with him also a really big change to his character, where he just
Right.
That'd be
because I remember the guy who dies all the time, kept saying that you lose something every time you come back.
Right.
Right.
That was my initial thought when he first died in that show.
Same. I remember
Yeah,
that.
Yeah, I
thought he
think
was
that
just
was
gonna be-
everybody for sure.
I
Yeah.
thought something else would change, maybe his character, like something he saw or he's bringing back, or maybe even it's not that, something physical.
Yeah.
Like his ability, he gains it as ability that he can withstand.
He
more
he
hits
looks
or
down at his
something.
pants and is like, something is really gone.
We had to sacrifice something to bring you back. No, why couldn't you have just taken an arm?
I know, right?
Oh my god. Yeah. All right. I think that's about it. Like, I don't think does anybody else have any closing thoughts?
Oh, since we're speaking of Game of Thrones, I'll just say one quick death that they clearly were just made an entire episode around just to get to this plot point was the death of I think it was Viserion, one of Dany's dragons. When he died, when the Night King throws the ice spear at him and he dies when they go beyond the wall. They clearly did that just so that the Night King would have him. He would be able to bring him back to life and have him as a dragon. Yeah, rewatching that 7th season, it's really evident. Like that entire that episode up until the 8th season was the worst episode of the show, which was unfortunate because it had a lot of potential to be a cool story. But it's really obvious that it's just they literally just built this entire story of going this stupid story, or not. The story itself wasn't stupid, but the goal of them going beyond the wall to get a white to bring back to show Cersei that they were real is pretty stupid. And they clearly did that just so that the Night King could get a fucking dragon, so that it could be okay, he's gonna rip through the wall, and now obviously we're gonna build up to the Dany and Jon on their dragons versus the Night King. But it's okay, we couldn't even see it in the episode because it was so dark, so it didn't matter anyways. But that was definitely one of those things where you rewatch a series and you see you saw that it was parts of it were bad before, but you see some glaring issues with it on a second watch through.
You start noticing these things that they purposely did that were choices for
exactly. Yeah,
I see. Vehicles.
I mean, that kind of goes on with the trend of that 7th season with the plot armor thing that season started, of so many characters having plot armor. Viserion had plot armor. It was just he just had to change as a quasi character, as being a dragon, from being good to bad, I guess. On being on the villain side instead of the good, quote unquote, good side.
Speaking of plot armor, that is the arcana for the Mortal Kombat Cole character.
Oh yeah.
Thing in the
It's
trailer,
he literally gets armor.
That's his power. Well, I mean, he gets the Tonfa blades, but he is a human plot armor, literal. It's so literal. He couldn't be more literal than that. It's the entire time in that, the reason why I don't like him too is because his whole character is built on him getting beat up. That he can withstand getting beat up and take it, and that was the thing. But the thing I don't like about it is that there's no reconciliation of the fact that maybe he can be the guy that beats the person instead of taking beating, because there's no
right.
You know what I mean? Like you start
Yeah.
with a character that says like,
I can't fight, but man, I can take a beating like no one you've
Exactly.
ever seen.
yeah,
Basically
and then,
Homer
and then the
Simpson in
hero's
one
journey
episode when
is
he
that he can
talks.
finally beat somebody down. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like he has the ability to do it. He just needs to kind of like learn it. But no, he doesn't. He still gets beat up the entire fucking time.
Huh.
They just hate the whole Arcana thing because it's just a way for them to do lazy writing of like, this is how they got their powers.
Yeah, I mean it is. I mean, how are you
Yeah.
gonna do that? I mean, even in the '90s one, they here's the thing: in the '90s one, none of them used the power. If you remember correctly, like you saw Liu Kang do kind of a
At the
quasi,
end, yeah.
quasi Hadouken thing, but really, the entire both that and Annihilation, they never had their powers from Mortal Kombat.
I mean,
This is
aside
the
from
first
like
time.
Sub-Zero and
Oh, man.
Scorpion.
But they were
I mean,
like,
Annihilation, that
they
masterpiece.
were nothing. They were, like they were just like, we're just from another world, like like
Yeah.
they don't even need to explain it. Whereas in this one,
It's-
it's like we gotta we need them to have powers, but how are we gonna explain them to have powers? So it's like, okay,
Sure.
let's just
Yeah.
throw in the fucking little tramp stamp on them, and then say that that's what the powers.
Oh
It
my
gets
God.
activated by your tramp stamp. Oh man, that would have been great if Sonya Blade had it positioned
Right there above her.
like right
yeah,
there, of
her
all
back,
places.
right above her butt.
Yeah, yeah. Okay,
She
so
would have looked. She would have looked in the mirror and it's like, really?
yeah, that would have been hilarious. That would have been so fucking funny. You know what they need? They need to keep up with the camp and the Kano jokes, cause like his like very referential to what's going on and hyper aware that this is ridiculous is really funny. They need to keep up with that, and they gotta amp up the fights. Like they gotta get like they gotta train the actors, like really get them trained, or they gotta get some really like a lot more stunt actors, martial arts stunt actors, because I could see that they can go like full force with the martial arts and really make it good. Because if they can make the Scorpion Sub-Zero fights as good as the rest of the entire film in every fight, then you got yourself a martial arts film, but like still encased in the whole the game storyline or whatever.
Yeah.
Okay.
I hope it stays rated R too, because
Yes.
people want to see
100%.
people want to see those those damn.
Yeah,
fatalities.
they got it.
Yeah.
They did a good job on all those. Like all the fucking fatality kills are fantastic. Which one you okay? So you've seen it, right? So which one's your favorite, or would you say is your most enjoyable?
Say, I mean, Kung Lao for sure. That's
Yeah,
that's
that one's
definitely the one that made me go like, ooh.
like damn,
You know?
yeah. That was
Yeah,
like
yeah.
that's like straight up from the game. Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
I agree on that one. I liked Kano's death because it was a callback to what he did earlier with the
Yeah.
what's it called, the lawn gnome? Yeah.
Oh yeah. You're right. That definitely was
Yeah.
great. It was like a great setup and
I was
payoff.
like,
you know?
oh, okay. I see what you
It
did
was like,
there.
oh my God,
Nice.
that's set up all the way from the beginning. Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. So like, if anybody so for those that don't know, is that Kano is a fucking douchebag and he's gross and he's disgusting. So amongst his little quips and jokes or whatever, he, further emphasizing he's an asshole, he says something. I forgot. He says something to Sonya Blade maybe or whatever. Where was it? Oh, this is how like the plot moves to the one in the next environment. But basically, he has a connection to go to the said temple that they need to go find, and blah blah blah. But he doesn't want anything to do with this. Kano doesn't care about this marking that he has. He doesn't care about Mortal Kombat. He doesn't care about any of that stuff. And how they convince him to come with him is that Sonya Blade lies to him, saying, "Hey, I'll pay you." Like, the only thing that he, cares about is money. So, he's like, okay, fine. It's like he's like, so easily gullible to think that she has like $1 million or something like that, and she lives in some sort of like junkyard. And she spits at like he's like, all right, let's go. And then he spits. He throws he shoots a loogie, and he spits on one of her lawn gnomes, and the lawn gnome has its hand out where the loogie landed, and then the scene much later when she and him are having a fight, she wins by taking that same lawn gnome and stabbing him in the eye where his laser shoots out, where he spit at. So, obviously my description is not nearly as good as the punchline that was happening in the actual like movie. But yeah.
Damn it, Sean! Now you just ruined it for them. They could have enjoyed it.
Whatever. It's
Anyways, when
Mortal
you watch it,
Kombat.
it'll be fun. I know. But it was one of those moments where like it was a good setup and good payoff because they set it up all the way from the beginning and just
Yeah.
comes back like,
Well, I mean, plus also you love to hate Kano in this entire time. Like he's such an asshole and a gross asshole, and he's funny when he makes those quips that it was very satisfying to see him go the way he went.
Right.
You know those like, have you ever had those characters that they're just sleazy, like their worst human pus bucket of a person? That's basically Kano, but the worst of it is that he's actually capable of killing people. So it's like
Right.
really like one of those conflicting worlds of like, I hate you, but you can actually kill me.
no,
Yeah.
right?
But yeah. All right. I think that's it for closing arguments on, I suppose, or debates.
Mm-hmm.
All right. I will see y'all next time. Bye bye.